What's up, folks, and welcome to Retro Ramble. I got another collection for you. These have been coming. There's been quite a bit of these this year, actually, usually in the more niche variety. And this one, I guess you could kind of say is as well. But I was interested in this because it's from a Japanese developer that I had a lot of fondness for growing up, but that most people only know for one thing, which is the R-Type series of super hardcore shmups. But they made a lot of other good stuff too, and this collection aims to show some of that off. So yes, this is Irem collection, though it doesn't say here volume 1 of 5. Yeah, this is the only one that's out right now, but by the end of 2024, there are supposed to be 5 of these. And well, this collection's cool, but if the other collections are going to have the same amount of content as this one, they probably should have just been one. But anyway, we'll go into that here. And the first thing you're going to see here when I jump into this is that there is no R-Type. Yeah, you'd think they wouldn't want to bury the lead in order to get people in on these things, but yeah, there is no R-Type in this collection. I don't know what's going to be in the other ones, so presumably it'll be there. I hope we see some other lesser known Irem classics as well, like Ninja Baseball, Batman, and some other stuff like that, and some of their weird platformers that they made and things like that as well. But this collection is all shmups, and it's only 3 of them, though there are multiple versions of a couple of them here. So to start off, you have Image Fight, which contains the arcade version of both the Japanese and world release ROMs, which is cool. There's a PC Engine version, also known as the TurboGrafx 16 in North America, which is a system that often doesn't get a lot of love in these collections. So there's the PC Engine version of that, and then there is the NES version of it, as well as the Famicom version from Japan. You have Image Fight 2, which actually came out on the PC Engine CD, which is a system that gets even less love, though that's the only version of this available. And then you have what is probably my favorite game in this collection, which is X Multiply, which just has the Japanese and world arcade versions. That's it. That's all that's in this collection, which for the price is a little steep, if you ask me. That's been the case with a lot of these in games collections, but nonetheless, if you're really into these types of games, this could be compelling, and it is out on all the major consoles, though once again not PC, because I don't know why. I really don't. And this is one of the collections that has been ported together by Rodaleka Games, who have done a lot of these. And as is typical with all their collections, in terms of features, it's not the best, but definitely not the worst either. Not like some of the 8-bit legit collections re-releases that we've covered lately. So I've covered this in other videos of this, but I'll go over them really quick. You can line out your different things here, your different controls. You can rebind them. Really, really cool. There is a Tate display mode if you want that, which is cool. You have various different pixel resolutions here for how to scale the display if you want. There are wallpapers for the background, only 2 of them, but they're actually both kind of nice. But yeah, there is only 2 of them. You can change to, I don't know why you'd want to change to black and white, but you can. You can change the color palette around to all these different things that don't look anything nearly as good as the original, in my opinion. And there is scan lining available, and it's actually, you can tune this quite a bit. This is something I've always been really impressed with these collections. Most of them either don't have scan lines at all or have very basic scan lining. I don't know what Vengeful CRT is. It just looks like a CRT that's kind of broken. But it's neat. They give you a lot of different options for that, and I do appreciate it, as well as there's different pixel scaling filters as well. Crispy's the default. That's what I tend to like as well. You can also, there's stick aim, which allows you to control the shooting of your options directly, which you'll see here. Pod drift, which is really cool. You know, little features specific to the games that are really cool. You can change the difficulty of the ROMs if you want, your starting lives, whether or not you have vibration, all that jazz. Really nice. There is an invincibility mode in this if you want, and well, there's documentation, but really this is just credits of this stuff here. So yeah, it's cool though. There's a lot of there's a decent amount of stuff in here. There's also save states. Could it do more? Yes, but this is more than competent compared to a lot of things. So there's 2 different modes here. There's standard mode and arcade mode. Standard mode gives you the ability to use cheats, save states, the rewind system, which this also has, control enhancements and dip switch settings. I do find it rather amusing that it says achievements are disabled in this mode. I'm playing this on the Switch. There ain't no achievements here, guys. Just saying. But yeah, that's kind of funny. And then there's the arcade mode, which does give you achievements, but it just disables a lot of the extra features. And I mean, there's no achievements, so what does it really matter? I don't know. Anyway, so you can fire this up. It jumps you right in, which is nice. There's no ROM startup sequence. Purists like that, but most people don't care. So you can just fire it right up. There is co-op in some of these games as well that you can, actually, I think all of them actually, which you can have if you want. I'm obviously just doing single player. And I'll give you a quick little rundown of what these games are. So Image Fight is a game I think most people know from the NES, which has some of the most shrill NES sounds you've ever heard in your life. But these are all shmups. This one, obviously, as you can tell, is a vertical shmup. And it's the thing I like about Irem is they always broke the mold a little bit from what was popular at the times. Shmups, even though there were a lot of good ones in the late 80s, early 90s, a lot of them were very formulaic. Like they were almost interchangeable to a point in how similar they were. Irem always kind of did their own little things, and that's the thing I always appreciate. So what's interesting about this is that by pressing a key, you can actually change between 4 different ship speeds, which can make different types of battles quite a bit, you know, it can really change the dynamics of a fight and allow for more precision when needed, and also the ability to jet around heavy bullet patterns when needed. I think that's actually nice. I like the way they have that set up. And you do pick up power-ups, which usually consist of well, there's different types that you will get, but they consist of these sort of options. They all have different names, but options is sort of what I remember from the Gradius games, and they're basically little orbital craft that fire around you and give you additional guns. And some of them, depending on how you have the controls set, you can control how they fire by tweaking your joystick movement a little bit. So you can actually, they don't just necessarily fire straight ahead like these guys here do. They can actually change things up a little bit, which is interesting. And yeah, it's a fairly standard shmup. As you can see, it's not super high pace, though it does get harder later as you go on. All Irem shmups were known to be, even by shmup standards, generally quite challenging, and this is absolutely no exception. So there's a button there as well where you can sort of, I forgot to show you that, where you can sort of send your options out to attack enemies within the environment. This is unlimited, which is nice. Obviously, they're not shooting at your side when you send them out like that, but this is a way that you can sort of help clear enemies that are further afield of you in the battlefield. And in typical Irem fashion, you have these really unique boss designs with really unique weapons that make things, that mix things up a lot from the standard formula. Irem was not afraid to get weird, which, as you know, I always appreciate. But yes, the Irem games were hard, even by shmup standards, and the majority of them use this very brutal checkpoint system, where if you die, you lose everything. You go back to complete zero. So here's one of the options that you can control with your direction. You go back to complete zero, and there's usually only 1 or 2 checkpoints per level if you're lucky. So, and that's the case here too. So you got to be prepared to go back to zero and hold your own until you can power yourself up again. Some people like the challenge that this methodology provides, that this type of checkpointing system provides. Other people really don't care for it. They think it's kind of cheap and designed to get, you know, really designed more to get money out of you than to provide a really good challenge. I say, why not both? I think it definitely helped arcade operators get more money out of people, but I also think it can provide an interesting challenge and an incentive to really utilize your power-ups and learn enemy positioning really well. That's generally what I think about it. Not everyone agrees, but that's what Irem was famous for, and you're going to get that here without a doubt. This game is going to make you work for your victories, no doubt about that. So here we go. It gives you a little bit of a boost at the, or a little bit of a breakdown at the end, and of course there's a score in that. Whoops, wrong button as usual. I always get those mixed up. So one of the nice things about this, though, is that unlike some of the other Rada Leica collections, there is a leaderboard option available in this. Now, it's not when you're playing the standard game. You have to go into this challenges mode. And all this is the game on various different difficulties, and you can have the stick aim on or off. And literally all you're doing is you are doing a single credit run of this. So there is no continuing. and it's how big a score can you get, and then it posts to the leaderboards, which is actually kind of cool. The leaderboards don't work too badly. Now you're going to see right now that there's basically nobody on here. This just came out, so these will probably start to fill out more over time. I'm assuming the leaderboards are platform specific, i.e. if you're playing on the Switch, you're only going to see other Switch players. But they do have this, and they have it for all the different modes and all the different games, which I think is actually kind of cool. I don't know what this near thing is, because that guy is probably not in Canada, but whatever. So yeah, all the games have that, and that's pretty cool. I like the fact that they had that. No replays. Replays are always nice in games like this, and even really small teams have shown that they can pull that off, but you know, still. So I'll show you all each of the different versions of this here. We'll be a little quicker on these ones because I've already gone through all the features with you. This is the piece. So the arcade version of Image Fight is probably still the, you know, the best one, if you will, in terms of fidelity and audio-visual features and stuff. But the PC Engine was, I wanted for the longest time to do a video on this. This is a system that gets a lot of, it's kind of considered the redheaded stepchild of that generation, undeservedly. I think the PC Engine and the TurboGrafx were actually really cool systems. And it's like I said, these systems don't get a lot of love in these collections, and I'm really glad to see this. They were kind of a half step between 8 and 16-bit. They weren't as powerful as the Sega Genesis or the Super Nintendo, but they were more powerful than the NES and way more powerful than the Master System. So they were kind of this interesting, like, mid-generation thing almost, and they held their own quite well with a lot of arcade ports. They weren't arcade perfect, as you can see here, but they held up. They held up all right, and this is definitely the best home version. The NES version was popular, but it's definitely not my favorite, and I'll show you why shortly. But yeah, this is a competent version of it. It plays well. It's got a lot of the same levels and enemies and stuff. The graphic style is obviously different because this system wasn't as powerful as the arcade board that it ran on. But it's pretty darn solid, and I'm really happy to see the PC Engine show up in these collections, because it doesn't get the love it should, in my humble opinion. So that's pretty good, and you have all the same challenges and features that the other games in the collection have. It's nice to see that they've made sure that every title from every emulated platform gets the same features. That's kind of cool. And this is the NES game. Now, as I said, this is probably the most well-known version of Image Fight. I think this sold pretty well on the NES back in the day. But you're going to see here, and this does play well. It's a very competent version of this, but you're going to see why or rather, you might hear why this is not my favorite version of this. And that would be why. This game has some of the shrillest music and sound effects I've ever heard on the NES, and there were a lot of budding musicians on the NES who used way too much of this high-pitched square wave, but this one is among some of the worst offenders. I find this version to be quite shrill and hard on the ears. Maybe I probably would have been more tolerant of this when I was younger, and to a point, this is probably my old man hearing, but I'm just really not a fan of the soundscape that they chose for this version of it. Obviously, this is has quite a bit less fidelity than the arcade version. The arcade version was a 16-bit board. The NES is obviously an 8-bit system. Also, a rather interesting choice of color palette they picked. A lot of very bright colors, as you can see. A lot of cyan, a lot of hot orange. Kind of an interesting choice. It actually works okay. It's not bad, but it definitely, in contrast to the arcade version, it certainly stands out. But you know, in magazine screenshots and in the back of boxes in stores too, this art style actually probably did make it stand out a little bit more than some of its counterparts that may have been on the shelf with it. So, you know, that's something. It plays well. It actually runs pretty well. It doesn't really have a lot of slowdown, a lot of things that were very common on the platform at the time. And it's well developed. I just, yeah, the sound, I can't take it. I can't handle it. So we're gonna get out of that one. So yeah. So now we'll move on to the next one. So yeah, this is Image Fight 2, the sequel. Only version is the PC Engine CD. I don't know if there were other versions of this. I assume maybe there weren't. You know, they were getting pretty well into R-Type at this point, I think, which really became the bread and butter of Irem. But it's, again, PC Engine, and it's the CD add-on, which is even more rare to see in collections like this. And the nice thing is, because it's the CD, you get, well, you get a voice-acted intro that I can't understand. But here we go. It doesn't remove the load times, unfortunately. But you get CD quality sound effects. And possibly the best thing that everyone loved about the PC Engine CD quality music. Truth be told, the PC Engine CD, that was its biggest selling point. The games themselves often didn't play a lot different on the CD versions. Sometimes they did because they had more memory to do some extra effects and stuff, but the PC Engine didn't have the ability to do things like full motion video. It didn't have a decoder for that. So for the most part, when you bought CD games, you were getting regular TurboGrafx 16 games with really banging soundtracks. That was kind of the only thing. It wasn't really until the Sega CD that full motion video, for better or worse, started becoming a thing. But that said, a lot of the soundtracks on these Japanese PC Engine releases are friggin' fantastic. And this one's got a pretty ballin' soundtrack as well. So I think that's pretty cool. And it's definitely a contrast for the system. You know, a lot of people have never even touched a PC Engine, and fewer still have heard what the CD drive was capable of. So it's neat to have that in here. And it is a sequel to the game that is, you know, enhanced in a number of different ways. And of course, it has all the other features of the other ones. So that's pretty nice. And it plays, you know, it plays quite well. And I hit the screenshot button. Dang it. I always hit the buttons wrong on the Switch controller, I swear. Anyway. So we've got that, and then this is what I think is probably the best game in the collection. So this is X Multiply. It's gonna look R-Type-y. It is R-Type adjacent, I would say, but it is definitely not just R-Type. But it's weird. I mean, as you can see from right here, this feels a little bit, and for 89, this actually is some pretty impressive production value here that Irem put into this. This does feel like it's maybe trying to go in the same vein of like Konami's Life Force or something like that, where Life Force was kind of like, well, it was kind of like Gradius, but like really, really weird environments. That's kind of like what this is. Now, this does definitely play more like R-Type in that you'll pick up upgrades as you go, and you don't get to choose your upgrades on a you know, sort of an upgrade tree along the bottom like you do in the Gradius series. But you have this interesting sort of thing. Rather than having the little pod like in R-Type that you had the option to shoot forward and back to attack enemies, this is like these little tentacle things. And they move in relation to your character. So as you can see here, as I move back and forth, they kind of physics around. And what's cool is that they not only shoot things, but anything they touch gets continuous damage from them. So the strategy in this, it really involves swiping yourself around so that you do the most damage to the foes around you, actually with these tentacles in addition to your bullets. There's going to be several situations where you're dealing with a large number of different enemies, sometimes with fairly high hit point counts on the screen at once, and you're going to get quickly overwhelmed if you don't allow these sort of appendages to do some of the work, like in cases like that. Oh, frig. But as you can see, this is very R-Type-y. When you die, it makes you linger on the screen for a second before it fades out, and then it takes you back to a checkpoint with nothing. yeah, very R-typey, very much, again, designed to challenge. Some would say designed to just suck quarters out, but you know, people liked the Irem. You know, Irem's most popular games, the R-type games, are games that had that very punishing checkpoint system, and people played them in droves. So people like it. You know, they clearly enjoy it. So Irem stuck to what they were good at, and yeah, I mean, the style of this game is just completely banana cakes. I mean, the environments in this look super weird. I think they were definitely trying to do their own version of Konami's Life Force. For sure. But you know, I like it. I think it actually plays quite well. I actually like this sort of appendage mechanic more than I do the pod mechanic in R-Type. People who know how to use the R-Type pod really well can do insane things with it. High level R-Type play can often be a sight to behold, watching how people manage that thing. So I like this in a sense because I think it is a little easier, because you don't have to shoot it out and manage it while it's sort of out in the world, if you will. They're always attached to you, and it's just a question of how you move to face them. So to me, this is a little bit easier, though some people might not agree. And yeah, overall, I think this is the I've had the most fun with this game. I like all the games in this collection. I think it's an interesting choice that they chose to showcase 3 of Irem's less popular titles in this. You know, they didn't choose to do an R-Type game to start off the collection. I'm curious how that move's going to pay off for them. When people know you for a certain game, I think it makes more sense to give them that game up front and then, you know, use that to say, hey, if you like that, maybe you'll like this other stuff we made, and you should get drawn into that. You know, that's kind of my thought process on that, but I ain't no game executive, so what do I know, right? Oh yeah, also no continues. So because, you know, you work for your victory, son. We gave you no handouts here. Don't care how many quarters you put in. Yeah, so or maybe there is, actually. Now I sound like an idiot, but hang on, maybe there is. And it just, after you do the shut up, never mind. Yeah. I honestly don't remember that from before, but anyway. But yeah, you know, like a lot of these Inen and Rodaleka collections, this is a good collection. It's got a competent list of features. Some are done better than others, but the ones that are done better are done a lot better. I think it is actually competently put together, and I think all the games in this collection are good. I also think it's really expensive for 3 games with a few variants thrown in, and really, I think it would have made more sense for them to put all of these, to take everything that they've got for all 5 collections, put it into one collection, and just charge a higher price for it. I think splitting it up into 5 collections like this, and the price per game here, like you're basically paying $10 for each one of these games and their variants. And considering a lot of the collections that are out there, and frankly, other ways that a lot of enthusiasts can get their hands on these things, I think the price of entry is a little high. But Inen has put out more expensive collections than this, and they keep putting them out in price points like this, so they must be selling, right? They must be doing okay. And I mean, clearly, there's a lot of companies that have their hands in the Irem properties these days, if you see the number of logos that come up when you launch this thing. So I don't know, maybe they are doing well enough at that price point. But to me, as an enthusiast who loves to play these things and likes having them available in a modern, legal way, the amount of money they're asking is a little steep, but value is going to be up to you. If you want 3 really good Irem games that you maybe didn't know about, you get those here with some extra features bolted on that are pretty solid. So that is something to consider. But you know, you may want to wait and either for a sale or wait until all the collections are out and then see what's got the stuff that you really want in it first. That may be ideal for you, but something to think about. But it's a well put together collection of some cool games that if you like shmups, you probably should definitely check out. So that is Irem Collection Volume 1. It is out now on all the major consoles and not PC for reasons I don't know why. Yeah. good but very small collection of shmups that deserve more love than they got. So thank you guys very much for watching. I do appreciate it. If you liked what you saw here, please do all the normal YouTube things. Those do help the channel out a great deal. Leave a comment down below. Tell me, do these interest you? What do you think about the price thing that I've been talking about here? Do you think these collections are too expensive, or do you think they're actually good? You know, what are some of your favorite Irem games? Are you just an R-Type person, or did you know about their other stuff? And what else would you like to see in the future volumes? I don't know if they have all the games picked out yet. I want to see Ninja Baseball Batman, dang it. That game deserves to exist somewhere else because it is an underappreciated gem, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. And as always, you can follow me over at twitch.tv/pxabstraction for multiple variety streams a week. I'm going to be focusing more on retro stuff there for a while, actually, tackling what I call the deep backlog. So if that interests you, we have a great little community there, and I'd love to see you be a part of it. Thanks again, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one. You folks have yourselves a good one. Take her easy.